What says the defense?
The defense is ready, Your Honor. May I briefly call my client?
Yes, and you're still under oath, Ms. West.
What do you mean?
Just answering some questions. Please state your name for the record.
Jessica West.
And Ms. West, you now are in the punishment phase of the trial that we've discussed. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you also have the option of testifying in this portion of the trial. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And have you made a decision as to whether or not you want to testify?
I think so, yes.
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 And what is your decision?
I would like to testify.
Okay. And are you making that decision freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
And no one has promised you anything regarding this case, is that correct?
No.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. West, just like before, during the guilt or innocence phase, your attorney is correct. Even during this phase, you have a right to remain silent and not testify on your own behalf, just like you have a right to express yourself, okay?
Okay.
If you do get on the stand, the state will be able to cross-examine you and ask you questions and test your credibility. You understand that?
Okay.
And nobody has forced you to make this decision this time, is that correct?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's bring the jury in.
All rise.
Please be seated. Okay, we're back on the record. Record will reflect that the defendant is present with her attorney. The state is present. The jurors are present and so. The state of Texas having rested. What says the defense?
The defense is ready, Your Honor. And Your Honor, may I give a brief opening statement?
You may.
May it please the court, counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, we absolutely respect your verdict. Now that we're in the punishment phase of the trial, as we talked about in punishment, now you get a complete view of who Jessica West is. Remember when we said guilt innocence is a snapshot of what happened on that particular day? But punishment is a complete photo album. The state is absolutely correct. Jessica West has no criminal history. Jessica West is remorseful of what happened. I've stated before, if anybody can take back the consequences that happened on December 17, 2020, it would be Jessica West. We absolutely have heartfelt sympathy for the family of Charles Hudson. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear from Jessica. You're going to hear from her family, her friends, what type of person she is. And ladies and gentlemen, when you were in punishment, we ask that you would keep your mind open to the full range of punishment. The state is asking for 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have probation come talk to you about what probation entails. We're gonna be asking you for probation in this particular case. And right now, I want you to keep your mind open to the full range of punishment. And we want you to consider probation in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. Call your first witness.
Your Honor, we're gonna call Lori Baker.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You raise your hand for me. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Defense may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your full name for the record and spell your name for the court reporter.
Laurie Baker, Lauriebaker.
And Ms. Baker, how are you presently employed?
I am employed with Dallas County Community Supervision and Corrections Department, probation, as a court officer assigned to CDC number 2.
And how long have you been a probation officer with Dallas County?
15 and a half years.
And so, being an employee of probation in Dallas County, you've seen individuals who are placed on probation, is that correct?
Yes,
And you supervise individuals who are placed on probation?
I see them when they're in court, yes.
Can you give the jury a brief overview of what is required of a person on probation?
Depending on the case, different things. Essentially, they're gonna report to a probation officer in our field office, either monthly, weekly, bi-weekly. They will have to stay clean of any and all drugs and alcohol. They will have to make sure probation is aware of where they live at all times. They'll have to have a job. They'll have to take any and all classes assigned related to their case. If it's an assaultive case, they'll have no contact with the victim or the victim's family. Sometimes there's restitution owed in the cases they have to pay. They'll have to pay probation fees, urinalysis fees for drug testing.
And those are just general requirements that is asked of probation.
Correct.
Is it also possible that the court can put other conditions?
Yes, the judge can put any and all conditions they want on the case.
Would you consider probation to be a cakewalk or something easy?
I would hope not, no. No, it's not intended to be.
Okay. And that person is supervised depending on the court or depending on the judge, either monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, like you stated, correct?
They will have an assessment done. It's a Texas risk assessment that all probation departments use, and that will determine the level of supervision they need to win their report.
And that assessment is basically, what is that assessment? Is it an interview with the defendant?
It'll be an interview that someone will, likely a field officer will have with the defendant. History questions about their growing up, their history, their health, their mental health, where they live, who they associate with, any past offenses they've had, any drug or alcohol use they've had, that kind of thing.
And based on that assessment, if there is a need for a follow-up assessment, is that also conducted as well?
Yes, the TRAS is done every year, or if a significant incident happens and they need to do it again, they can, yes.
And you say TRAS, and what does that stand for?
Texas Risk Assessment.
And that TRAS, that further explores into mental health, if there are any issues with addiction or addiction to controlled substances or things like that, is that correct?
That's the basic risk assessment eval we do. We also have an ATRS, which is an evaluation for mental health or drug evaluation for needs they may have, mental health caseload, mental health needs, drug and alcohol treatment.
And Ms. Baker, as far as a person being on probation, the judge or the court can impose other things like this jail time, which we refer to as sanctions, is that correct?
Yes, anybody on probation or felony probation is subject to up to 180 days in jail as a condition of probation.
Okay. And ELM, do you know what that is?
Electronic monitor.
Yes, can you briefly tell the jury what ELM is?
ELM is a monitor we put on we have a vendor that will place on someone, they have to pay for it, and it monitors where they are at auto, so we can add a GPS function, make sure they have exclusion zones and they can't go to certain areas. Kind of make sure they're not doing, usually we do it with assaulted cases, to make sure they're not going near victims or their families, or places they don't need to be.
And also, we have other devices or other things that are in place, such as Scram or Interlock. Can you briefly describe what those?
A SCRAM, which is we call a transdermal monitor, it's an ankle monitor that tests for alcohol through the sweat in the body. So if someone's consuming alcohol, we will know, it'll tell us. And also, Interlock is a device that's put on the car, but you have to blow into the device, it tells you if there's a blood or breath alcohol in their lungs, so if they've been drinking, we know.
And to address drugs or any other narcotics, do we have what is called a drug patch?
Yes. We will do random urinalysis in the field to make sure they're not using drugs. We also, the judge can order a drug patch, which is another transdermal patch that goes on the body, and it tests for drugs through the sweat in the body.
Other conditions that the court may impose, such as a curfew,
Very standard with an ELM especially, yes.
and can you tell them what the curfew is?
It's, the judge picks the hours, and those are standard curfew. You have to be home by this time, and you cannot leave your home until this time.
And if a person is placed on probation out of Dallas, is there a restriction on where they can go?
They have to stay in the county they live in, Dallas. Some judges allow any county that touches Dallas County is an okay zone. Some judges do not. And if they need to travel out of Dallas County or out of that zone, they have to come and get a travel permit approved before they can go anywhere.
Is it also one of the possible requirements of probation that they would go to the person's house to do a check on their living conditions?
They've recently restarted field visits after COVID, and yes, a field officer can go to the house and check, make sure they're living there, make sure there's not things around the house that don't need to be there, drugs, alcohol.
And so, Ms. Baker, you are a court probation officer, but you indicated or made a distinction with field officer, is that correct?
Correct.
Can you tell the court, or can you tell the jury what's the difference between a court officer, probation officer, and a field officer?
Okay. We're both certified probation officers in the state of Texas. Court officers specifically work, there are 17 felony courts in Dallas County. Each felony court has 2 officers assigned to that court. We're assigned to that court, we handle any and all probation cases out of that court. And then we have a number of field offices, and they're split off by zip codes, so they will be reporting to the office closest to where they live. Those are supervised by field officers, and then we have home visit officers who go see them in their home, they're different as well.
And you briefly talked about random UAs as well. How is that actually effectuated, or how does that take place?
There's one that's required within the first 6 months of probation. If it's negative, it's required every year after that. Also, if the judge wants more, the judge can also direct that we do it more, they do it more often in the field, correct?
And Ms. Baker, if a person is on prescription drugs, is that something that probation accounts for in UAs or things of that nature?
Yes, one of the requirements we tell people, I tell them when they're going on probation, if you take any prescription drugs, take the prescription bottles for your officer so they can have them on record. And if you test positive for amphetamines, methamphetamines, if you're taking a prescription for Adderall, that they're gonna send it for confirmation, and it's gonna tell us, is it Adderall or is it methamphetamines, which is illegal. So yes.
And it's very well possible, even if that person is on prescription medication, the court can say that that person cannot take that prescription, correct?
Yes, they can, the judge can impose any probation conditions they choose to. And I have seen judges impose that you cannot take narcotics if you're on probation.
And if a person is on probation, what's the maximum length of probation for straight probation?
For a certain 10 years is the maximum they can get.
And if that person violates within that period of time, can you briefly tell the court or tell the jury what happens?
The field officer will complete what we call a violation report. It lists all the violations related to the stipulations of probation that that person has committed. They'll send it in to the court officer. We'll look at it. Then we will send it to the DA that's assigned to that case. And they'll make a determination if they would like to file a motion to revoke. If they file a motion to revoke, and then we'll go to the judge and request a warrant that's issued for their arrest. They can also decline to do a motion to revoke and ask us to summons them up here. We send a formal summons for them to come and have them addressed by the judge.
And Ms. Baker, we often refer to technical violations. Can you explain to the jury what a technical violation is?
Technical violation is any violation of a condition of probation, with the exception of the very first condition, which is you cannot commit any new offenses against the state of Texas or the United States, and you may not have a firearm.
And when you say commit any new offenses, that's all the way down from a Class A or B misdemeanor up to any felonies, is that correct?
Yes, and they also look at Class Cs, if it's an assaultive Class C. If it's something like that, if it's a speeding ticket, generally, it's not a problem. If you get an assaultive ticket, we're gonna talk to you about it.
And if a person is on probation and there is a violation, is the court made aware of any violations pretty quickly?
Yes, we're supposed to have it within a certain amount of time. If it's a new offense, we're supposed to be notified within 24 hours and have the motion within 48 hours. And we send it, it comes to our screen, we send it directly to the ADA assigned on the case.
And at that time, the court can do what is called a probation violation hearing, is that correct?
After we file a motion to revoke, and it's served, yes.
Okay. And the violation to revoke is just where that report comes in if that person violates any of the conditions that are placed upon them, and they're presented back in court, is that correct?
If a motion to revoke is filed, which is the determination of the district attorney, not us, they file a motion, the judge issues a warrant, then they're brought in, and we have a hearing at that time. You can also have a summons form, bring them, and we usually have an informal hearing for a summons in front of the judge, yes.
And just to be clear, once a jury finds a person guilty in offense, and if they are placed on probation, a violation report is generated. If there are any violations, then they're facing the range of punishment for that particular offense, correct?
Up to 10 years.
If the person, so, Ms. Baker, so what I'm saying is if a person is placed on probation, the maximum sentence for probation is 10 years, is that correct? But within that period of probation, if a violation report is actually generated because the person has violated in some way, at that particular point in time, the person is facing the same range of punishment of the offense, correct?
If it's a regular probation,
Yes.
up to 10 years,
Up to
yes,
10 years.
yes.
And they're not entitled to another jury trial. Once they're placed on probation, we're then dealing with punishing that person for the violations, is that correct?
No, there's not another jury trial. At that point, either the state, the DAs, and the defense attorney come up with an agreement, and the judge approves it, or they go what we call an open hearing, where they go before the judge, and the judge determines the sentence.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. No further questions, pass the witness.
State?
Good morning, Ms. Baker.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Just some follow-up questions for you. As a court probation officer, how much face time do you have with probationers?
The least of anybody. We see them when they go on probation, we see them when we have to bring them in to modify them or extend them, and we see them if a motion is filed or a summons is filed, and we deal with them at that time.
Okay. The most interaction you have with them is the very first meeting, correct?
Correct,
Like an orientation type meeting, fair to say?
correct, yes.
How
Yes.
long does that meeting take place?
With us, the court officer,
Yes, ma'am.
depending on the case, unless it's a sex offense case where they have to register, we're usually with them maybe 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, so their first orientation is 10 to 15 minutes.
With the court officer,
With
yes.
the court officer.
Yes, ma'am.
And then if they violate, then you will see them again.
Correct.
Okay. Now, there are field officers, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said a field officer may meet with them weekly or monthly.
Correct.
When they have those weekly or monthly meetings, how long is that interaction?
That can be anywhere from 10 minutes to 30, 45 minutes.
10 minutes to 30 or 45 minutes. And then there is a different field officer that does home visits.
Correct.
How often are home visits conducted?
Generally, only if they're being supervised at a high level, the maximum level of supervision, or if the judge has ordered it.
Okay, and then how long would those home visits last?
If they go there in their home, maybe 10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes for a home visit. And it's the TRAS that is part of the assessment to determine whether someone is high, medium, or low risk.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is based on someone's criminal history,
Correct.
someone's age at first arrest.
Correct.
What are some of those other factors?
Where you live, your neighborhoods, your mental health history, your health history, your family history. Was your family involved? Did you consider you were abused growing up, that kind of thing? Any drug or alcohol history.
Okay. Typically, what kind of defendants are placed at the high risk maximum? Like what scenario are we looking at for those people?
It's usually somebody that's at high risk of reoffending, or the thing is a high risk, that scores out as a high risk of reoffending, or a high risk of needing exceptional support.
Okay. You mentioned the Intoxilizer earlier. That is the device that goes on vehicles, typically for people that are charged with driving while intoxicated or some type of intoxication offense, correct? But that's only for alcohol, correct?
Correct.
There is no Intoxilizer unit for drugs, correct?
No, there's not.
If a probationer has a no driving condition, other than catching them in the act or someone reporting them, there's no way for you or the field officer to ensure that they're not getting behind the wheel of a car, correct?
No, ma'am.
When it comes to medication compliance for prescribed medication, what is the process for a probation officer to conduct that medication compliance?
If they're just strictly on a mental health caseload, they will basically ask them if they're taking their meds. We have them sign a release, and they'll talk to MetroCare, whoever they're going to make sure they're coming in on their appointments and communicate about their appointments and what's going on there.
So they ask the probationer if they're complying with their prescription medication
Yes, ma'am.
instructions.
Yes, ma'am.
So a lot of this is based on self-reporting.
Yes, ma'am.
Do the probationers sometimes get to check in by phone?
Yes, ma'am. The low risk can check in by phone or at a kiosk in the office, yes.
So depending on how that TRAS turns out, you could have a probationer that's not even getting any face-to-face interaction with probation officers.
Correct. It's usually 1 month, then you can phone in for another month, then you report for a month.
The ATRS, which I always forget what that stands for, is the drug and alcohol assessment, right?
Correct.
That too is based on self-reporting, correct?
Yes, it is.
So if a probationer self-reports that they are no longer using or abusing drugs, be it prescription drugs or illicit drugs, there would be no further steps in that process, would there?
Unless they're in jail. In jail, they will pull their Parkland records, and that will tell us that they've come in and been put in detox or need to be medicated because they weren't. But generally, for a field ATRS, no. It's just self-report strictly.
Self-report. So if you self-report no longer abusing prescription drugs, there would be no recommendation for further treatment.
Correct.
And you said that individuals are allowed to use prescription drugs if prescribed by a doctor, correct?
Yes, unless the judge declares otherwise, yes.
Okay. Can the probationer at some point request that their probation go into non-reporting?
Yes, they can.
Can you explain to the jury what non-reporting means?
It's basically unsupervised probation. We don't see them, they don't pay fees. The only way we generally find out is if anything happened is we get what's called a flash report, that DPS runs and tell us they've been arrested on a new offense, or we run their NCIC, which is their criminal history, and see they've been arrested for another offense somewhere else.
Have you seen cases where the prosecutor files a motion to revoke the probation, first time, first motion, and the judge continues that individual on their probation?
Yes, I have.
So just because they violate probation doesn't mean they're going to prison on that first violation, correct?
No, ma'am.
Sometimes they get a second chance.
Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes they get a third second chance.
Yes, ma'am.
Unfortunately, I've seen fourth and fifth second chances, have you?
Yes, ma'am, and more.
How many probationers do you currently supervise?
I don't directly supervise any. I am technically over everybody that's out of criminal district court number 2, but I do not directly supervise them.
The probation officers who are assigned to courts that do supervise people on probation, what is their caseload like?
Court officers don't supervise, so a field officer would supervise them.
Okay, so
They're-
better question then, how many do the field officers supervise?
It's gonna depend on the kind of supervision, if it's on misdemeanor, if it's on non-reporting, or low level. It can be anywhere from 50 to 150.
Anywhere from 50 to 150 for field officers. I'll pass the witness.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court. Ms. Baker, just a couple of questions. As far as, a probationer that's on probation, the judge is the person that is making the final decisions, is that correct?
Correct.
And when you were asked about if a person on their first violation is continued, there are a lot of factors that have to be taken into consideration, is that correct?
Correct.
The type of offense and what those violations are is pretty much the factors that are considered in determining if a person is continued on probation or revoked, correct?
That's what I've seen in the past, yes.
Okay. And I know that you stated that you've seen people on their first violation get continued on probation.
Yes.
Have you also seen a person on their first violation be discontinued on probation or sentenced to prison?
Rarely.
But it has happened,
Yes.
okay? And again, that's based upon the offense itself and what those violations are, correct?
Correct.
As far as non-reporting probation, that is something that has to be agreed between the parties and the court, correct?
It's ultimately the judge's decision, yes.
And if a person is found guilty and placed on probation, generally, it's not gonna be a non-reporting probation, correct?
Correct.
And generally, the person that is placed on probation, it will be out of, if a person is found guilty in Judge Angham's court, in Criminal District Court number 7, she would ultimately be the judge who would determine factors or conditions to probation, correct?
Yes, yes.
And when we say conditions, those are requirements that the person has to do, that they have to do on probation, correct?
Correct.
And Judge Angham will be the person ultimately deciding whether or not that person is continued on probation if there's a violation, or sentenced to any type of prison term, is that correct?
Ultimately, yes.
The state was asking you about face time that a probation officer has with a potential probationer, is that correct?
Correct.
That face time is gonna vary, or depending on the circumstances, is that correct?
It depends on the circumstances, what they're in for that month, yes.
Have you also had situations as a court probation officer where the court required the person to come to court, as far as what you were saying, as far as a summons, to explain anything that happens while they're on probation, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the court could make it a condition where the person reports to the court probation officer for a period of time, is that correct?
They can, yes.
And as far as the field officer, the court ultimately determines what the conditions are and how those are to be abided by, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. No further questions.
Ms. Baker, did you say you're currently assigned to Criminal District Court number 2?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
No further questions at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
your next one.
The defense calls Christina West, Your Honor.
Good morning. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? Thank you. If that's me, proceed.
Thank you. Mrs. West, would you please state your name for the court reporter and spell it?
My name is Christina West. My first name is Christina. Last name West, West.
And do you know Jessica West that sits to my right?
Yes,
How do you know her?
she's my daughter. She's my second daughter.
How many children do you have?
I have 4. I have 3 now. Her oldest sister passed about, I think it's been, I'm messed up right now, sorry. I think it's been 3 years, 2 years. It's been right in there.
And her older sister died of,
COVID. Yep.
and can you tell the jury how old Jessica is?
Yeah, Jessica's 40.
And does she have any children?
No,
And has she ever been married?
no.
And where did Jessica grow up?
Jessica was born in California, but we moved to Texas, like she was 2 months old. And we had opportunity to buy our property because we didn't think we could afford property in California. So we came to my family's land. I bought a piece of property from my uncle. It was a fixer-upper for sure. And that was our first home in Colleyville, Texas, and we stayed there. Gosh, I think we were there 20 years, maybe. Yeah, we were there a long time. And then we moved to Arlington, and now we're in Waxahachie. She lives with me in Waxahachie.
And how long has Jessica lived with you in Waxahachie?
This time she's lived with me since we had this situation.
And when you say situation, you mean as of December 17, 2020, or?
Yeah,
Just thereabout.
she came to my home. She was with Ryan before that, and then she came to my home after that second walk. We call it the walk, in the neighborhood. And I think that was October. Yeah, she's been with me ever since, yeah.
So October 2021, she's been with you,
Mhm.
living in Waxahachie. And who lives in the house with you and Jessica?
I have my oldest daughter's sons. We're finishing raising them that passed, and me and Rosie.
And how old are the oldest?
Isaiah's gonna turn 19 this month, and Elijah is 20.
And you said Rosie. Who is Rosie?
Rosie is Jessica. That's what I call her, is Rosie.
What is her full name?
Jessica Rose West.
And so it's 4 of you that live in the house?
Yes.
Okay. And did Jessica grow up with her father?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I was married for 42 years.
And has her father recently passed away?
Yes.
Okay. And what year did her father pass away?
Just a while ago. 23.
So since this case has been pending,
Yeah.
she has incurred 2 big losses.
2 deaths. We all did, yeah.
Would you like some tissue?
I have to, it's gonna be enough. I told them.
And-
That's all right, take your
It's
time.
gonna be emotional, sorry guys.
Calm down, take your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Growing up, you said Jessica grew up in Colleyville. What was her childhood like?
It was great, and all the kids say it was great. The house wasn't great.
Why do you say that?
Well, it was like Pier and B, and it needed a lot of repairs. It had been my great-grandparents' house. Then my mother grew up there. You know, my grandparents raised my mom there, and so it was an old home. And we had possums and skunks that would go under their house and stuff, and when it rained a lot, it would flood a little bit. It never came in the house, but it would come right up to the back door.
Okay.
So, you know, the living conditions were challenging. But, everybody, all my kids now are just like, you know, those were some really good times. We had land, and it was freedom, and played outside a lot, and it was just a cozy place to be, a lot of love, you know.
Did she graduate high school?
Yes, ma'am.
What high school did she graduate?
LD Bell.
And is that in Colleyville?
No, it's, we are right on the border of First Gillis Bedford School District, yeah.
And what type of jobs have Jessica had?
Mostly she's worked retail. She, enjoyed when she worked at the weight loss clinic. I think that was her favorite because she could help people. But like Burlington Coat Factory, Sam's Club, stuff like that, yeah.
How would you describe your daughter to the jury?
I would say that she's got a real tender heart, too tender. It's like she's one of those people that's hard in this world because she is tender. And, hello, me too. And, that she cares for people, and, she'd do anything for anybody. In fact, she scares me because she'll reach out to people that we don't know to help them, and I'm kind of more guarded and, don't wanna take chances, but that's who she really is.
Okay. And as of December 17th, 2020, how has this impacted Jessica emotionally?
Steamroll. It's like, I call it a tornado too. It's just like obliterated. And then you get up in the morning and you try to keep going, and she has. But, it's been a lot of scripture that has gotten her through this. And, she's made all the positive changes she's needed to make. She dropped the medication as soon as she found out it was a problem.
So she no longer takes any kind of
No,
prescription?
we're not, we're just looking at our vitamin study now. I'm serious. I mean, I don't trust it anymore. I have 0 prescriptions. I know this has been such a learning experience for all of us. So, hey, we got something out of it, right? We learned. You cannot trust your medication, people. Please be aware.
And you know the jury is tasked with, we're now in the punishment phase, and they're tasked with the job of sentencing Jessica.
Yes.
And they can sentence her anywhere from probation to 2 to 20 years.
Mhm.
Are you asking the jury to have mercy on your daughter?
Absolutely, please. That's what we begged, we pleaded, we prayed, mercy. I know this was horrible. I mean, we wake up with it every day. We know our family, we know. But I am asking for mercy for my daughter.
And Mrs. West, I'm gonna talk to you. Has Jessica expressed any kind of remorse to you about the victim, Mr. Charles Hudson?
Yes, absolutely. She's very sorry. It's like, if she could put it back, she could. And not just because you're in trouble, because you have to live with that. And it's impossible.
And just for the jury, and just where I have to ask, has your daughter ever been convicted of any criminal offense in the state?
No,
Any-
no.
Okay, does she have?
This is a tornado. It's like instant. Messed up. She never did anything wrong. We never had a problem with her. She was doing good in life. Everything was a go. And then boom, it just was so messed up.
And how did you learn that your daughter had been arrested for?
I was sick on the couch with COVID, and I had gotten a phone call, and they asked for my daughter, and I don't know if you guys had COVID, but it was pretty bad, and I just really wasn't with the program at that point, so I was like, no, she was living with me at that time, she was living with Brian, so I said, no, she's not here. Hung up the phone. Well, we talked. And so a few days passed, so I started asking my girls, hey, have you heard from Rosie? I haven't talked to her, because I was on the couch. I hadn't talked to her, so it's just conversation. Hey, have you heard from Rosie? Hadn't heard from Rosie. Touching base with all my girls. I got 3 others besides Rose at that time. Nobody's heard from Rosie. So I started getting scared, I started getting worried. And so then I don't know the order of things. I don't know if we called Brian and asked him, but probably, and said, hey, do you know where Rosie is or whatever? No. Okay, so then we're like, oh my gosh, where's Rosie? Because that's where she's living, right? So we're starting to call around, right? The police and all this, and nobody's got her. So then, in my mind, it just clicked in my brain. It was like, hey, somebody called asking for Rosie the other day. So I scrolled my phone and I got that number. And I said, and it's a bail bondsman. And that's how I found out.
And since this incident on December 17th, 2020, does your daughter drive anymore?
No, not at all. We take her everywhere. Mm-mm.
No further questions, John.
All right, Steve?
Just a couple. First of all, ma'am, I'm sorry for the loss of your daughter and your husband. I'm sure that this experience has just magnified those losses for you. I couldn't help but notice at the beginning of your questioning, you referred to this crime as a situation. You do realize that the jury has found your daughter guilty of killing Charles, right?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Did you realize that your daughter was abusing her prescription medication?
No,
And you do realize that we're all here today because of the choices she made?
I have a different feeling about it.
Well, this jury has found that she
Right.
voluntarily took
Right.
medication
The law, right.
to get high.
No.
You disagree?
I don't think she was taking medication to get high.
You sat here during the entire trial, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you saw in her medical records that she stated that she took lots of drugs and that she was very high, correct?
I know that's what was on that form.
And those were quotes in the record of statements that she made, correct?
It was what was written on that paper.
Okay, in quotation marks, yes?
Right, it had quotation marks, yes, ma'am.
And that's what the jury has decided here
I
today.
understand that. I do.
I'll pass the witness.
No further questions, John.
All right, may this witness be released?
Yes, John.
No objection.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, next witness.
The defense calls Jeff Richardson, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Richardson. Would you raise your hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Defense may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Richardson, would you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your name for the court reporter?
Sure. Jeff Richardson, JEFFRICHARDSON.
And do you know Jessica West that sits to my right?
Yes, she's my sister.
And how long have you known Jessica?
About 13 years.
And you've been in the family, and there was 4 of them, 4 children, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And are you married to her older sister or her younger sister?
Her youngest.
And where do y'all live, you and her?
In Waxahachie, just over the bridge from my mother-in-law.
And you've been into court this week pretty much every day to support Jessica, is that true?
Yes, I always bring her up here.
Are you the person that's been driving her back and forth to court?
Yes, ma'am.
And why is that?
Because she does not drive. She can barely be a passenger in the car.
Is she traumatized about being in a car these days?
Yes, I mean, she was already, before the incident, she was fearful of cars, and but now she hasn't driven since.
And can you tell the jury what type of person Jessica is?
she is empathetic to a fault. She cares more about your well-being than her own. And, I mean, on our way here, there was a homeless guy in a tent with his dog outside, and she's like, I hope that puppy's okay. I mean, that's who she is. She cares more about other people than herself.
And we've heard testimony that Jessica lost a sister, and now her two sons live with Jessica and her mother.
Yes.
How helpful is Jessica in help raising those two children?
She does the dishes, she makes sure that the meals are cooked, she cleans up around the house, she makes sure that, you know, the youngest is still in high school. So she makes sure that he gets off to school okay. So.
She's kind of stepped in and been a second mom for them?
Yeah, she cat sits for us if we go on vacation, and, you know, with a ride over to the house. Even just over the bridge, she won't drive.
And how has December 17th, 2020, with Jessica getting in that fatal car crash, how has that affected Jessica emotionally?
I mean, she cries all the time about it, you know. I would bring her up here for her monthly check-ins, and every time she would just cry, you know. It's been horrible.
And has she expressed any concern or any remorse to you as it relates to Mr. Hudson losing his life?
Oh, yes, obviously, yes.
And to your knowledge, does she wish she could redo that whole day over?
I mean, she would have never gotten on the pills if she knew this was gonna be the outcome, you know. She just thought she was taking a prescription, to help her, and,
And are you asking this jury for mercy for your sister-in-law, Jessie?
yes, yes. She's an integral part of our lives. My son and daughter are at home, and I don't know how I'm gonna explain if I don't bring her home.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. State?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, maybe something's been released.
No objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. Go ahead, next witness.
Yeah, the defense will call Jessica West.
Ms. West, you're still under oath.
I just called her.
Yes.
May I please record? Please state your name for the record.
Jessica West.
And Jessica, how old are you?
I am 40 years old.
And Jessica, are you currently working?
I'm not currently working.
And when were you last employed?
It was, my dad passed away, so that was in 2023, in November, I think.
And Jessica, where do you currently live?
I'm living with my mom,
And your mom, Christina West?
Christina West, yes.
And we've also heard from Jeff Richardson, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's your brother-in-law?
Yes.
And we heard about who lives with you in Waxahachie with your mother, your two nephews?
Yes.
Jessica, are you involved in any other extracurricular activities or hobbies or anything like that?
Currently,
Yes.
since I don't drive much, I just do the things that are around my house. So, we have a walking path, I walk a lot. I read my Bible a lot. Since I don't drive, I don't really know if it's considered a hobby. I watch a lot of church on TV and stuff.
Okay. So Jessica, I'm gonna direct your attention to December 16, 2020, okay? At that particular time, you were on prescription medication, is that correct?
Yes.
And your prescription, how was your prescription, how were you supposed to be taking your prescription?
1 tablet 3 times a day.
Okay, and that was the 20 milligrams of
Yes.
Adderall?
Yes.
Okay. Prior to December 16, 2020, I believe we already had an evidence that you had a prescription refill December 9th of 2020, is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that again.
And you're in shock now, right?
Yeah, I'm really trying to focus.
Okay. And so you had a prescription filled December 9th of 2020, is that correct?
Yes,
At that particular point in time, you were living with your boyfriend Ryan LaCour, correct?
yes,
In Wiley, Texas?
yes,
So at that particular point in time, were you working in 2020?
yes I was.
Where were you working?
I was working at a hormone replacement office.
The prescription that we've heard a lot about, the Adderall, 20 milligrams 3 times daily, what was the purpose of you being prescribed that medication?
It was for focus and to, it's basically just for focusing, but it also helped me with anxiety, and it seemed to bring down my depression symptoms as well. But it was mainly for my focus.
And we've saw medical records, and it was Dr. Zadie in Arlington who was the prescriber of that medication, is that correct?
Yes,
And I believe you indicated to me, when you started taking the medication from Dr. Zadie, the prescription kind of fluctuated and changed over the period of time in which you saw Dr. Zadie, is that correct?
I'm sorry, like I said, I'm trying to focus. You said, say that one more time, I'm so sorry.
You initially began seeing Dr. Zadie in 2011, is that correct?
Yes, originally, yes.
Okay. And when you started seeing Dr. Zadie, your prescription kind of changed to what it is now, or what it was at the time, to 20 milligrams 3 times daily, correct?
I think you're asking, was it different at the beginning, at the end?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Okay. And from our records, there was a break in which you saw Dr. Zadie, is that correct?
correct.
Okay. And you restarted seeing Dr. Zadie in 2016, is that correct?
I believe so.
Yes. And so, what was the reason for the break in seeing Dr. Zadie?
I moved to California for, I think 4 years.
And when you moved to California, did you also go see a psychiatrist while you were in California?
Yes, I did.
And was that medication continued?
Yes, it was.
All right, it was the same medication?
Yes, ma'am.
And at a point in time, you came back to Dallas or the surrounding area in 2016, is that correct?
Yes,
And in 2016 up to 2021, Dr. Zadie was your psychiatrist, is that correct?
yes.
At any time prior to December 9th, 2020, that you got your prescription refilled, did you have any issues with the medication?
No,
Had you ever had any kind of hallucinations or delusions or anything exhibited on December 16th through December 17th?
no. I had never experienced anything like that before.
Okay. So let's talk specifically about your driving. At the time, in 2020, December of 2020, you were living with your boyfriend Ryan in Wiley, Texas, is that correct?
Yes,
Would it be odd for you to be driving in Dallas?
100%.
Why?
From a very young age, my mom had a fear of highways, and especially Dallas. And that's something that I kind of carried into my driving experience. And so I avoided Dallas in general, like not side roads, not highways, at all costs if I could. The only time I would go through Dallas is if I was going through my mother's house. And I had a mapped out route that I had driven with a friend a couple times beforehand to make sure I had it. And I always had my GPS on my phone. So that way I could get there and get home safely.
And what about driving at night?
I did not usually drive at night.
When you were working in Wiley, did you take freeways or interstates?
Well, I'm sorry, say that one more time?
When you were working in Wiley, Texas, when you went to work, did you travel on freeways or highways or
I
interstates?
worked in McKinney.
Oh, I'm sorry, in McKinney, I'm sorry.
I would take back roads.
You had to take back roads. And is that because of the phobia you had of driving on the freeway?
Yes,
So, December 16th, 2020, Jessica, that particular day sticks out in your mind? Does that stick out in your mind?
yes.
Why is that?
Because I guess it's more the next day, but because of the horrible ending that it had.
Do you recall December 16, 2020?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you recall from that day?
I just remember, hearing things. I heard a voice like it was next to me. Like, it wasn't like it was like literally someone sitting next to me. It said, Satan uses opposites to hurt my people. I believe that it had something to do with God, because I'm really into like reading my Bible and stuff. We have been watching Da Vinci Code, and the TV was speaking to me. And I just thought that I was having this experience with God, not understanding that at that moment that something else was going on.
Almost an altered reality, is that correct?
It felt more real than anything else I'd ever, it felt more real than like being in this room right now.
Was there any conflict between you and Ryan or anything like that?
Not that I remember, but I don't know.
Okay. So Jessica, at a point in time, you left the house in Wiley, is that correct?
Yes,
Do you recall leaving the house?
I do.
When you left the house, did you take certain items?
Yes, at one point after watching the Da Vinci Code, the voice that had been talking to me, that I believe was God, told me to pack up my things. And I went to my room. I went to a picture of me and my nephew. And on the picture, there was a perfect triangle that was cut on my nephew's face. That's what kind of made me have this fearful feeling that whatever was going on, something was after me at that moment. I also grabbed my prescription bottle that had a heart on it, because the Da Vinci Code had started some type of, I don't understand like what kind of words to put into. Whatever was going on, it was like I was following like a trail in my brain, and it kept like leading me places. So we watched Da Vinci Code, and that got me stuck on symbols. So the triangle on the photo made me think someone had come in the house and done it, was coming after me. And then my prescription bottle, I grabbed it because there's a heart on top, was a CVS one. And my mom had always said that when she saw a heart, it means that God loves you. So that's why I grabbed it. I grabbed my Bible. I went to the bathroom, grabbed a robe. And I had gone in the bathroom, and I thought whatever was tracking me, I got rid of my phone. I took the SIM card out, threw the phone and everything in the trash can because I thought it was tracking me.
Okay, so you recall leaving the house, correct?
Yes.
And do you know about what time of day this is?
About 8:39.
And how are you sure about the time that evening that you left? Is this just an estimate of time?
It's an estimation.
Okay. Do you recall driving?
I do remember driving.
And do you recall where you were going?
There wasn't like a destination. It was just kind of the voice that was speaking to me, kind of just following that.
So Jessica, you've been sitting throughout this trial the entire time, is that correct?
Yes.
You understand that as a result of the collision, you went to the hospital and your blood was taken and analyzed, is that correct?
Yes.
And the blood toxic, or the toxicology report had your blood levels for the Adderall at 216.5. Jessica, did you take more of your prescription?
I took it like I always do, which is I'd always take it right for my lunch, my breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so 3 times a day.
And because your prescription does not give specific times in which you take it, sometimes would there be a variation in time in which you took your prescription?
I'm sure, yeah, my breakfast, lunch, and dinner is not always at the same time.
If you missed a dosage of your prescription, did you double up or anything of that nature?
No, if it was close to the time of it, I would just take it. But if it was like right before the next dose, I would just take the next dose and just leave it at that.
Okay. And so Jessica, how would you explain the high levels of amphetamine of the Adderall in your system?
I don't know.
Do you remember driving further into the morning hours of December 17th, 2020?
To be honest, when I was in that state of mind, time wasn't a thing.
So the time period that we have, you leaving the house 8, 9 PM at night, and the crash that ultimately killed Charles Hudson happened about 3:45, 4 o'clock in the morning. Do you have any idea of what you're doing during that time period?
I remember at one point, I went to a friend's house, I went to their door, they didn't answer the door. I spent some time in their front yard talking to the stars, I think. I don't know how long I was there. I got back in the car, and I had this obsession with the stars in the sky, and I feel like I was following a star for a while. Like driving, I don't know how long that was. I ended up at a CVS, and I ended up driving there and sitting there for, I believe that's where I was for most of the time at a CVS. And I don't know if it was because of the prescription bottle, or at one point I did work at the front end of a CVS, maybe I felt safe there. But I sat at CVS for a long time, reading my Bible, the Bible was coming to life. The voice was speaking and speaking and speaking and speaking, which again I thought was God. But I think the majority of that time I was at CVS.
Jessica, do you recall the impact of the collision?
I don't remember the impact, but I remember right before. My windshield was full of light, and I was out.
Okay, so you don't recall the impact?
No.
And after the impact on the highway, did you pass out? Did you?
I believe I was knocked unconscious. I was blacked, I guess, and I opened my eyes, and then I realized I didn't understand what had happened, but I knew something had happened, but I was definitely knocked out at one point.
Do you recall the first person that came to your particular vehicle on the highway? Okay. What's the first thing that you remember?
The first thing, whenever I woke up, I felt like this sounds so crazy. I woke up and I felt like all the teeth were shattered in my mouth. Like I could literally feel them in my mouth broken. But from the time, because my head, I guess it hit the windshield. But from the time from feeling it to looking in the mirror, it went back to normal. I started jumping back and forth from the front seat to the back seat. I don't know why. And at some point, I almost did climb into my trunk. I don't know why. And then instead of that, I then think that was a good idea. Instead, I thought getting naked was a good idea. And so at some point, I took off my clothes in the back seat.
Do you recall going to the hospital?
Yes.
Okay. And at the time at the hospital, the state has talked a lot about statements that you made at the hospital. I took a lot of drugs. Can you explain that?
I don't remember saying that.
Okay. And so you were still in your altered state, your reality as you thought. But if someone said that you made those statements, your answer to them is, I don't recall saying that?
I don't remember saying that.
And when I showed you those medical records with that statement, did you indicate those are not words that you normally, or how you would normally talk?
I haven't ever really said the word high. In referring to my prescription, I've never referred to it as a drug. And so I don't remember saying it, but I also don't usually speak that way either.
And do you recall the staff at the hospital giving you other medication?
I know. The only part I remember is being in the hospital, being confused where I was, and I kept asking everyone their birthday, I think. And then at some point, they must have given me something to knock me out. Because I don't remember anything after not long of being in the ER.
Jessica, when was the first time that you learned what exactly happened the early morning hours of December 17, 2020?
It wasn't until my family found me. I found out on the phone what had happened. I think that might have been a week after I'd been in jail.
And Jessica, you found out that because of the accident or because of the collision that you had on Interstate 30 on December 17, 2020, Charles Hudson had passed away. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how has that impacted you?
From finding out at first, it was really hard to wrap my head around. Because, I couldn't believe that God had allowed that to happen. Because I do care so much for people. And that was the hardest thing for me. At that point, I had never lost anyone that was close to me. And then my sister died, my dad died. And I absolutely hate even more now that happened because I have felt the pain of losing someone close to me. And I really am sorry.
Hey
I
Jessica,
really am.
you heard from the family of Charles Hudson, his sister, Miss Ward, and also his brother, Mr. Hudson as well. Do you have any type of remorse or any words for the family?
I feel horrible. I heard for the first time in this room what happened to him, and it's awful. It is awful. And I'm so sorry. If I could take it back, I would. That was horrible. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
And Jessica, when you say you found out for the first time, you're talking about the extent of the injuries, correct?
Yes.
Jessica, now that we're in the punishment phase of this trial, the jury is now tasked with the job of determining punishment in this particular case. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And the jury has a full range of punishment for this particular case, which is a second-degree felony, correct? And the range of punishment being that of 2 to 20 that we discussed, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you are also probation eligible, correct?
Yes.
And probation eligible meaning that the jury can assess probation in this case. Is that your understanding?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have no other criminal history, is that correct?
No, nothing at all.
Are you asking the jury to consider probation in this case?
Yes.
Why is it? Why is that, Jessica?
I never meant to hurt anyone that night, and I really am not someone that was going out trying to hurt someone. I really wasn't. Ever since this has happened, I have really made it my mission to tell everybody, if you take a prescription, make sure you read every single side effect and assume it can happen. And I would just hope that you would, I just hope you have mercy on me. I was not taking a whole bunch of pills. I know that's what it looks like, but I wasn't. I really wasn't. And I understand, I know that you guys have found me guilty, but nothing like this will ever happen again.
So Jessica, I'm gonna direct your attention to shortly after the accident in March of 2021, you went back to your psychiatrist, is that correct?
Yes.
And at that point in time, did you divulge or did you discuss with your psychiatrist, Dr. Zadie, what had happened on December 17, 2020?
I told her everything.
And when you usually got your prescription, did you have to have an appointment with your doctor prior to that prescription being filled?
Every single time.
Okay. And did you get prescriptions on off periods or try to get more of a dosage or anything like that?
No.
Okay. When you told Dr. Zadie what happened on December 16th or December 17th of 2020 in March of 2021, did she say anything to you regarding your medication or the continuing of your medication?
She did not tell me anything about that Adderall could cause psychosis. At that time, she thought that since I had COVID, that it was COVID-induced psychosis. And I want to believe that's why she continued prescribing it and didn't make me aware that it could cause psychosis.
Okay. And so you continued the medication up until October of 2021, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you recall having a second break?
Yes.
What do you recall?
The voice came back but it wasn't, I feel like the first time it happened, it was like progressive, like it wasn't like instant. The second time it happened, it was very fast, and it was like I was normal, and then the voice started talking, and whatever the voice said, like it said, take off all your clothes down to your hair tie, and I literally took all my clothes off and my hair tie and walked out the door. I was fine, and then my state of mind was just twisted.
And that was when you were living with Ryan LaCour in
Yeah.
Wiley, Texas, is that
Yeah.
correct? Do you recall how that episode ended?
They took me to a psych ward. I think I was there for 3 days.
And during the administration of your prescriptions with Dr. Zaidi, at any time, did Dr. Zaidi do any kind of blood tests or anything regarding your prescription?
No.
What type of assessments did she do with you before writing that prescription? for
She would
Adderall?
just ask me questions.
And was it an in-person visit or by video?
Before COVID, so I think whenever everything got shut down in March or April, whenever that was, it went to Zooms, or however they do it for I don't know if it's an actual Zoom, but online. Before that, I would have to go into their office every single time, like drive there.
And again, Jessica, the jury has found you guilty of manslaughter, meaning that you were reckless. Is it your testimony that you don't know why the levels of Adderall in your blood on December 17th are so high? Do you know the
I
reason?
don't know.
Jessica, did you take or abuse your medication?
No.
After the second after the second episode in October of 2021, did you learn at that point in time that your prescription for Adderall could have caused that break of reality for you?
Yes, the doctor who was in charge of my care at the psych ward came in and told me that.
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Jessica, you can't say what anybody else said.
Oh,
Upon learning, did you learn at some point in time that your medication could cause a psychotic break for you?
yes.
At that point in time in October of 2021, did you make a decision to stop taking your medication?
Yes, once I was informed that the Adderall is what was causing the psychosis, I have not gone back to that doctor. I didn't go back to doctors for a while and completely stopped all medications at that point.
Are you currently on any medications, Adderall or any other stimulant?
No,
And since that point in time in October of 2021, have you had any other episodes?
no.
So Jessica, one of the options that the jury can consider is probation in this case. And are you asking this jury to consider probation?
Yes,
And on probation, you know that it is gonna be required of you to do any and all conditions that are imposed upon you by the court. Do you understand that?
yes,
Do you have any problems abiding by any regulations that the court would dictate to you?
no.
And where do you plan on living if you are granted probation in this case?
I would probably be staying with my mom
Okay.
for now.
And Jessica, you understand that probation requires that you report to a probation officer either weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. Is that correct?
Yes,
And you understand that one of the probation requirements is that they will monitor to see if you're taking any narcotics or prescription drugs without a prescription.
yes,
And one of the ways that they can make that determination is by what is called random UAs. Are you willing to abide if the court deems to have random UAs with you?
yes,
Are you willing to abide by any condition if the court says that you have to have a drug patch, meaning that it would you would be monitored continuously to see if you are ingesting any narcotics or anything, any narcotics.
Yes,
And you understand that the court, if probation is granted, the court can keep tabs on you essentially, telling you where you can go, when you can go, if necessary.
yes.
No further questions, Chairman. Pass the witness.
Thank you. State,
Judge, may I retrieve an exhibit?
you may.
Ms. West, you seem to have a pretty good memory of the events on that day for someone that was experiencing psychosis. You remember December 16th and 17th?
I remember parts of it, yes.
Okay. Permission to publish, states 45, Your Honor.
You may.
And you said you remember asking the nurses what their birthday is, correct?
I do.
And that's documented, quote, "What's your birthday?" Right?
Yes,
So that documentation is accurate, correct?
yes,
And when they're quoting, that's because you made those statements, right?
I would assume so.
Yeah, because you just told everyone that you remember asking their birthdays, yes?
That's the only thing I remember, yes.
Okay, and that is clearly documented in states 45. Yes?
Oh, yes,
Publishing states 49. So likewise, when they quoted you again as saying you were very high and took lots of drugs,
is that saying I said very high, lots of drugs,
so
and taking I did not say?
quotes very high and quotes lots of drugs,
Yeah.
they are quoting you again, just like they did before, in asking their birthday, correct?
Yes,
Because from this documentation, when they put quotes, it's because you said those things, yes?
the parts in quotes, I would assume so, yes.
Okay. And on December 16th of 2020, you say that you remember talking to the television. I'm sorry, you have to say yes or no out loud.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were, yes,
That's okay. That's just so the court reporter can take your answers. Do you recall talking to the dogs?
I don't remember the dog part.
Okay. Do you recall your boyfriend telling you that the TV and the dogs can't talk back to you?
I don't remember that part of the conversation, though.
Do you remember him trying to tell you that this isn't real?
No,
When you left the house, did you have your clothes on?
yes,
Okay. and you had your keys with you,
Yes.
okay? Do you remember getting behind the wheel of your car?
I know I got in my car. I don't have an exact memory of getting in the car, but I know I got in the car.
Okay, and you chose to get in your car.
Yes.
And you chose to get in your car after hearing voices.
I didn't realize I was hearing voices, but yes.
You didn't realize you were hearing voices.
At that moment, I thought they were real.
Okay. And you chose to drive around Dallas.
I didn't know that I was in Dallas, but that's when I called, yes.
Okay, you chose to continue driving, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And your memory before the collision is you said you saw headlights in your windshield.
Yes.
Okay. And you were here during the trial, so you heard the evidence that there were no skid marks made by your vehicle, correct?
Yes.
And that indicates that you didn't try to stop or avoid that collision, correct?
Correct.
Do you know if you removed your clothing after the collision, or were you already naked while you were driving?
After the collision.
After the collision, you removed your clothes.
Yes, ma'am.
And you said you were moving around your car, but you don't know why.
Right.
Well, we know why. It's because you had too much amphetamine in your system, correct?
I don't know if that's why I was jumping around. I just know that's what I was doing.
Well, you were experiencing psychosis, right?
Right.
Okay, and the psychosis was caused by too much amphetamine, correct?
That's what I'm told.
Okay. You recall being taken to the hospital, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Asking the nurses about their birthdays.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. And earlier on direct, you said nothing like this will ever happen again. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
But it did almost happen again, didn't it? October of 2021, this happened again.
Yes. My doctor had kept prescribing the medication, not telling me that's what caused the episode. If she would have told me at that point, I never would have taken it.
And
ever
I
again.
appreciate you want to explain yourself, and you'll get a chance to do that again with your attorneys. It happened again October of 2021, yes?
Yes.
On that day, you were hearing voices again, yes?
Yes.
You took off your clothes again, yes?
I did.
And luckily, you didn't get behind the wheel that day.
Yes.
And that's because I believe your sister called police?
That's what y'all said. I don't actually know who called police.
Okay, but thankfully, somebody called police and stopped anything worse from happening, correct?
Yes.
And this was after you had already killed Charles.
Yes.
You know that taking too much prescription medication can have adverse effects, don't you?
Yeah.
Because you had considered taking too much prescription medication prior in order to potentially commit suicide, correct?
Correct.
Would you describe yourself as a religious person?
Yes.
Okay. Earlier you said, I can't believe God allowed that to happen.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Sorry. That he would, sorry.
Take your time.
Because I spent my whole life helping people, and he knows my heart. And I couldn't believe he would allow a situation
arrested making phone calls from jail.
Yes.
You made calls to your mom? Yes?
Yes.
You made calls to your boyfriend, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall having a conversation with your boyfriend in which you believe God had you kill Charles because he must have been a bad person?
No,
You don't remember that conversation.
I don't.
You mentioned he must have been a serial killer and God had you kill him in order to save God's children.
At one point, before knowing exactly what had happened, I was trying to rationalize why would God allow this to happen. And I wasn't saying that Charles was a bad person. I was thinking the only way God would allow this to happen, there had to be something, he was trying to save somebody or something. It wasn't that I was saying that Charles was a bad person. I think I was trying to rationalize, like, why would God allow this to happen?
And in your mind, he must have been a bad person if God allowed you to kill him.
I wasn't saying he was a bad person. That was just something that I think I was trying to rationalize why God would allow something like that to happen.
But ultimately, Charles was killed, not just passed away, but he was killed because of the choices that you made.
Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
Jessica, just a few questions, Judge. Jessica, when they were talking about jail calls that you made, do you recall being in jail?
Yes.
Do you recall them still giving you medication in jail?
They gave me antibiotics because of the cut on my leg and ibuprofen for the pain.
Did they give you any other medication, like in the hospital, they gave you antipsychotic medication to kind of counteract any?
They did not continue any of the medications from the hospital other than antibiotics and ibuprofen.
And while you were in jail making those phone calls, you remember some of those phone calls, were you still in an altered state?
I was still in an altered state for the majority of the 70 days I was in there, yes.
And from the collision that you had with Charles Hudson, I know you kept seeing Dr. Zadie up until October of 2021, but did you also receive any kind of counseling or therapy?
I did. It took me a while to be able to feel okay going in public again after I got out of jail. But in June of 2021, I think my attorney had me go through something when I got out of jail, where they gave me a resource to, I don't know if it's like a government-funded mental health thing, but it's called LifePath. And I called them in June, and I went and had a consultation, and I did almost 2 years of counseling with they're not the kind of people, like, I haven't seen that give out prescriptions, you just talk to them. I don't know what those are called. But I did that for about 2 years.
And Jessica, because of this tragedy, of course, the Hudson family is forever affected, is that correct?
Yes.
And I think you testified that if there was a choice, you would have rather passed away other than Charles Hudson, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that still your belief?
Yes.
And Jessica, while this case has been pending,
I'm sorry.
and Jessica, while this case has been pending, you have not had any issues while what we consider on bond, is that correct?
No.
You've reported or you've come to any and all court dates, is that correct?
Every single one.
And after October of 2021, you no longer took any narcotics, prescribed or otherwise, is that correct?
No.
And since that time, have you had any other episodes?
Nothing.
And Jessica, you're no longer, because of this tragedy, you're no longer driving, is that correct?
No, I haven't driven since the accident.
And is that your personal choice?
Yeah, I don't see any reason to.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
State?
Yes or no? Do you deserve to go to prison for killing Charles?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
One last question. Jessica, I know at all times you have been remorseful because of the death of Charles Hudson, is that correct?
Yes.
And again, if it were a choice between you and Charles, you would prefer it to be you, correct?
Yes.
We talked about possible punishment and the reasoning for punishment. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Okay. As far as,
Excuse me just a second. I'm sorry.
It's okay, take your time.
Okay.
Jessica, you're asking this court and you're asking this jury to consider probation, correct?
Yes.
Nothing further, Pastor.
All right. May this witness be released?
No objection.
No objection, Your
All
Honor.
right, thank you, you can step down. Does the defense have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor. At this time, the defense will rest.
Okay. Do both sides rest and close?
Your Honor, the state has one rebuttal witness.
Okay, go ahead.
State calls investigator William Martinez.
Good morning.
One,
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. State, may proceed.
Good morning, investigator Martinez.
good morning.
Could you please state your full name and spell it for the court reporter?
William Martinez, W-I-L-L-I-A-M. Martinez, M-A-R-T-I-N-E-Z.
Now, investigator Martinez, you are an investigator with the DA's office, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been with our office?
Just over 5 years, July would be 6.
And you specifically work in our vehicular crimes unit, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So vehicle death cases are all you work on.
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you work prior to the DA's office?
For the city of Dallas, I was a police officer and ended up being 21 years was in the traffic division.
So when you worked as a police officer, you also worked in vehicular crimes as well.
Yes, ma'am. I was a detective there from 2004 to when I retired in 2019.
Now, currently as an investigator for the DA's office, what are your responsibilities?
Our responsibilities is to get subpoenas, to get documents from hospitals and or, get documents from hospitals and maybe employment, just getting together documents and anything requested from y'all that we need to put all the pieces together for a case.
Do you also regularly listen to or monitor jail calls from defendants?
Yes, ma'am. Requested to do that upon occasions.
And then, if requested, you will download those jail calls for prosecutors?
Correct.
Okay. What is the system used for recording and storing jail phone calls?
It's called the Securus system, Securus, and next gen Securus, is what it's called.
Okay. And that monitors jail calls for the Dallas County Jail, otherwise known as Lou Sterrett.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then how do we identify in that system who a particular caller is and what their name is and their identification.
There's a documentation that is printed out when we pick out a particular call they want to listen to. We first have to identify it from the particular, say, the inmate. Inmate's given a booking number, and we use that booking number to look up all their calls and stuff they make, whether video calls or telephone calls.
So each inmate has their own particularly assigned booking number.
Booking number and PIN number, yes ma'am.
Okay, and then what is a PIN number?
PIN number,
That's specifically for phone calls, right?
correct.
So when a defendant makes a phone call, they have to use their assigned PIN number, correct?
Yes ma'am.
Now, sometimes they switch and use other people's PIN numbers, is
Yes.
that right?
Yes ma'am.
So there's additional steps that you have to take to verify who that person is, the defendant?
Correct.
Okay. Can you talk about how you also verify through AIS identification?
Yes, when someone's taken to jail and booked in, they're given a booking number. And, with that booking number, that tracks them everywhere. What they're doing, where they're assigned to. They go by that particular incident, why they're there for that, arrest, tracks them with that.
And the AIS system also has their jail booking photo, correct?
Yes ma'am.
Along with all of their identifiers, like their date of birth, their name, and
Correct.
other.
Next to the PIN, if there's available, social security number, there's all their identifiers. If there's any arrest, prior arrest or offenses, that will be on there also.
And then Securus, when it comes to their PIN number, also has a photograph and identifiers, correct?
Yes ma'am, it does.
And so you can compare the identifiers from Securus to the identifiers in AIS to make sure it's this one and the same, correct?
Correct.
Would you explain to the jury what AIS means?
It's Adult Information System is what it stands for.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I forgot what it stood for too. Did you have a chance to pull and review phone calls for defendant Jessica West?
I did.
And were you able to verify from PIN number, booking number, and personal identifiers that the phone calls pulled were one and the same Jessica West?
Correct.
Did I have you pull a call from December 26th of 2020?
Yes ma'am.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm showing you what's marked as States 58, that jail call from December 26th of 2020 for Jessica West. Have you had an opportunity to listen to that entire jail call?
Yes ma'am.
And you were able to verify that it is for defendant Jessica West, the defendant in this case?
Correct. Yes ma'am.
And this is a true and accurate copy of that jail call,
Yes ma'am.
with no alterations or deletions. Now, in the interest of saving the court's time, we also have States 59, correct?
Yes ma'am.
And this is a clip of that jail call in the original 58, so that we're not listening to a whole 20-minute phone call, correct?
Correct.
And this also has basically closed captions to assist when you listen to the phone call, correct?
Yes ma'am.
Would States 59 aid the jury in understanding this jail phone call?
Yes ma'am.
These jail calls were already tendered to defense on tech share, but at this time, state would move to admit States 58 and 59 for all purposes. I'm gonna play just the portion.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, States Exhibits 58 and 59 are admitted for all purposes.
Permission to publish States 59.
You may.
I think I know what he killed them. He killed them through a fight, serial killer. That's why God had to kill them. They were serial killers. I was like, yes, and that's what I was thinking, like, if God actually had me kill a human, it wasn't a human, it was a bad thing. And that's the only reason why I'm okay with that, if I kill someone. Like, they were probably on their way to kill someone, or hurt someone, of God, and not seen them. And I truly do believe that Satan was in who that person was. And I killed them. I'm okay with that. Because God wanted me to. So somewhere, there's a family of God that's okay right now, because I took out the enemy. I'm okay with that.
That's the end of States 59. I'll pass the witness.
Defense?
No questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, may this witness be released?
No objection from the defense.
No objection.
All right, thank you. Does the state have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, at this time, state rests and closes its punishment case in chief.
Thank you. Defense?
Yeah, I would briefly like to recall Christina West.
I'm still under oath, right?
Yes, you are.
Please state your name for the record.
Christina West.
And you're the same Christina West that already testified during the punishment phase of this trial, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You are the mother of Jessica West.
I am.
Ms. West, I just have questions regarding, when you found out your daughter was in jail, she made phone calls to you, is that correct?
I think we found her first, but yes.
And the nature of those phone calls, her conversation, was that the typical conversation that Jessica West would normally have?
No, she was crazy talking. We did like a video chat with her, the whole family. And it was like, we'd get off the phone and be like, what's going on?
And
She was crazy.
and
It
you
was crazy talk.
and you often told me in those conversations that you had with your daughter during this period of time, 12, 26, 2020, and thereafter, where what you characterize as crazy or weird, correct?
Very.
And that is not the normal.
No, I didn't know who she was. I was scared. She stayed in jail for a little while because we didn't know what to do with that.
The Jessica that you have now, are you seeing signs of where she was crazy, as you would put it, in December of 2020 or October of 2021?
No, she's right. She's regular. Everything's okay. I've got those boys living with me, and I would not let her be with me if she was crazy.
Nothing further, Ms. West.
I have no questions.
Oh,
All right, may this witness be released?
No objection from the witness.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Does the defense have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Do both sides rest in close?
Yes, Your
Yes,
Honor.
Your Honor.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you now have all the evidence from the punishment phase of this trial. It's lunchtime, so I'm going to release y'all for lunch and work on the court's charge, which I will present to you before the argument of counsel. And after the argument of counsel, we will retire to deliberate punishment, okay? Remember, you're still under my instructions. Don't deliberate punishment until all 12 of you are in the jury room. So we'll see you back here at 1 o'clock.
All right.
you have